I think it's important to put everybody into a perspective that we've been battling this out and have won in federal court for years, but they're back at it again.
Essentially, what we have in this particular case is the return of Lois Lerner with a vengeance.
It involves a group called Christians Engaged. They ended up getting their tax-exempt status when our friend Kelly Shackelford was able to, his group was able to get their exemption, but it violated a decree that we got from the IRS, where there was a change of policy so that they could not discriminate against conservative groups or pro-life groups or Christian groups, but they ignored it. And they wrote this ridiculous letter to the IRS, from the IRS to Christians Engaged, complaining about their biblical worldview, that they used the Bible as a reference. I mean, think about that for a moment, folks. That they actually put that in writing.
Religious views, those are expressly permitted, regardless whether any party, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green, any party opposes them or supports them. That is not determinative. You are allowed to hold those views.
They're violating their own statutory law. They're violating their own consent decree that they entered into and paid monetary damages over.
If this is in your material, your teaching, your thoughts, these are red flags. Laws versus lawlessness, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, government business ethics, human trafficking, the relationship between the United States and Israel. If those things are in your materials to the IRS, that is a red flag, and you run the risk of losing your tax-exempt status. That is absolutely crazy. And you think about it, it is a violation of the Constitution, which is another way of saying it's un-American.
Essentially, the IRS has engaged in un-American activities, and they're now accusing Christian groups of being un-American. It's a world that has been turned upside down.
It seems like when we did the last set of these IRS cases, it was words like Tea Party and Patriots and September 11th or September 12th Project. Those were the buzzwords. And now, as culture has shifted, the buzzwords are now really related to people's faith and their Christian faith and how they will now associate that with politics. Even though for a lot of Christians, I'd say a mass majority of them, those two things, though your faith obviously inspires your political beliefs, likely, they're not necessarily one and the same.
They don't mind new and perhaps bizarre faiths, but if it's a traditional faith, they are opposed to it because that may mean that you support traditional values, that you are politically conservative, that you believe in the nuclear family or whatever. And many of these individuals have been taught that those things are basically opposed to moral progress.
Inherently wrong. Yeah.
Yes, inherently wrong. And so I think at the end of the day, that is a problem.
So you ask yourself, what in the world got them thinking this was something that was a good idea? But I think it goes to the arrogance. And now the Senate is willing to get involved.
They have sent in a letter also to the IRS, Langford and many others, demanding really a response of what happened here, what actually led to them being, getting this letter saying, basically because you believe in Christian worldview, and they list a number of different things, that automatically means you're a conservative, which automatically means you're a Republican, which automatically means you're a political group and are denied tax-exempt status. It's a pretty wild precedent that they would even put it in paper.
The reason the United States Senate is involved now is because back in 2018, in addition to the consent decree that your dad was talking about, Congress actually told the IRS in statute that they cannot engage in this targeting again. They said things like the be on the lookout list are outlawed. They called it the Lois Lerner rule, and it was passed as part of the appropriations process.
I'm sure the Democrats will not allow hearings on this, but it is outrageous that the IRS tried this. What can we likely expect from the Senate side?
I think you're actually going to see probably some informal minority hearings or roundtables on it. I'm actually concerned that this is an effort that was actually initiated inside Congress. We talked about this several weeks ago when Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib was actually asking the IRS to look at the tax-exempt status of people who supported Israel and supported those policies. Well, if you look at this letter, Jay, I mean, Wes went through some of the list, but one of the things specifically mentioned, and you said this, is Israel relations. So one of the things that I want to find out during this FOIA is, was the IRS taking their cues from Rashida Tlaib and others in Congress who asked them to make support for Israel a stipulation for tax-exempt status?
Do you know when this started? Within months of the Biden administration coming into office. When the case was settled, we had no problems with the Trump administration, obviously. But as soon as Biden's people were in there, this started.